Mr. Transformers 96 here with another wave ranking video. So I do this every now and then when a wave comes out that I get the majority or all of the figures from, and I'll rank it from my least favorite figure of the wave to my favorite figure, not including the Build-A-Figure, because I definitely think that it's on a different level than the regular figures in this wave, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. I didn't get this entire wave. The entire wave consists of 7 figures. Only 6 of them come with Build-A-Figure pieces, though. I did not purchase the figure that did not come with a Build-A-Figure piece, which is Spider-Man in his black suit from the film, just because without the Build-A-Figure piece, it wasn't a figure that I found necessary for myself. And then I did skip Spider-Woman in this wave, and instead just bought her Build-A-Figure piece separate. The figure didn't really interest me very much, so it was just one that I didn't quite need. But I did pick up Scorpion, Doppelganger, Hydro Man, as well as the movie figures of Mysterio and Spider-Man / Night Monkey, and then of course I did build the Build-A-Figure. So because the Build-A-Figure is definitely way bigger and in a different kind of class than these other figures, I will not be including him in the ranking, just going to be ranking the individual figures. The way that I do this is mainly I'm focusing on the toys. Obviously, some personal preference as far as characters come into play a little bit, it's just a little hard not to, but for the most part I am judging these based on the toys, and this is my own personal opinion, of course. I think my number 1 choice is going to be a little controversial, to be honest, but yeah, these are just my choices on how I viewed the wave and how I enjoyed the figures individually. So let's get started with my least favorite figure of the wave. In last place, I'm going to have to put the Night Monkey. Design-wise, he's got a very simplistic suit, and the figure, I think, could be a lot better. It leaves a lot to be desired. Getting a full Tom Holland face sculpt would be great with it. Of course, he does take that entire sequence in the bar where he's got the entire mask off. You do get 2 heads with it, but one's just the little goggles flipped up, and they're not flipped up fully like they do in the movie. I just kind of think this is a pretty plain figure, to be honest, and not a ton of cool things you can do with it, and I think that the torso is a little awkward in some of its positioning, especially when you have the ab crunch done. Taking that 4th spot, we're going to have Scorpion. This is overall a pretty nice figure. I actually do like it. The entire figure itself is a completely new sculpt base with all the little line work that's actually sculpted into the sculpt of the figure and not just painted, which I think is quite nice. And it's a very classic design for Scorpion. My only big issue with it is that the face sculpt, that they've got the green mouth, when it really, I mean, if you want a classic Scorpion, it should be the open mouth, and the mask piece should just be above the eyes, which is how it's actually pictured on his box right there, as you can see. So I'm not a big fan of the mask that they went with, but the overall design of the figure is quite good. And then the Scorpion tail, I am really happy that it's posable, but it makes it a little awkward sometimes. Having actual just joints I think would have been better, but it's of course much more expensive, so I understand why we didn't get that. But nonetheless, a pretty nice figure. He did make it farther down on this list than I expected him to. He was probably the figure that I was second most looking forward to, so I am surprised that he did only get to 5th place, but this was a really strong wave overall. And in 3rd place, we have Hydro Man. This was a pretty nice figure. I was actually pretty excited for it, especially when it was first shown at the Toy Fair of this year. I thought that he looked like a really unique figure, and something that was, close to the quality of the Sandman figure, which was a Build-A-Figure. So I was very excited to see that Hydro Man would not be the Build-A-Figure of this wave, instead would just be a normal figure in it. And really didn't disappoint. I actually like the sculpt quite a bit. I think that the shirt looks like really natural on him. The line work looks really good and surprisingly good. I was surprised that the water effects for the feet are actually removable. Part of me kind of wishes that they weren't, but at the same time I do like the options of being able to display him with those effects and without those effects. The water arms are very cool, however very much lacking in the articulation on the elbow section, but they overall look really neat. My only thing that I would have really loved with this guy are interchangeable arms, so you can have him with the water effects or without, or kind of one with, one without. It would just help a lot more with poses and pictures and things like that. But you already get quite a bit with this guy compared to most figures, so it would be a little bit overboard to ask that without him being a Build-A-Figure or a figure that didn't come with a Build-A-Figure piece. So I can't complain, however, that would have been very cool. But overall, quite a nice figure. And in second place, we have the movie Mysterio. This was definitely the figure that I was most looking forward to in this wave. And if we're just doing it based on characters, I would have definitely put this guy on number 1. But I do want to, take into consideration the figure. And for me personally, this figure could be better. It's pretty great, to be honest, but it could be better for sure. It's 100% a completely new sculpt, which I think is really wonderful. There's a lot of intricate detail throughout it, which I think is great. My issues with it is that the fact that he doesn't come with a Jake Gyllenhaal head sculpt, which is obviously something that's pretty necessary with this figure. I'm really glad that we get the dome, but a human head sculpt is really necessary with this character, so it's disappointing that we didn't get it. The effect that they have for the helmet, although it's interesting, I definitely think that could be better too. I'd like more of like a smoke effect inside of it, similar to what they did with the comic figure. I think would have actually been a little bit more accurate than what we got with this version, with kind of the sparkle effect. The clasps for the cape are inaccurate to the movie, and then he doesn't come with any like smoke effects, or better yet, kind of Doctor Strange magic effects either, which I think would have really helped the figure too. So he's a little lacking when it comes to accessories, which is why I didn't put him at number 1. But the figure itself is very impressive nonetheless, and definitely deserving the second spot. And my favorite figure from the Spider-Man Far From Home Molten Man Build-A-Figure wave is going to be Doppelganger, which is surprising to myself, for sure, and I think that it will be quite a controversial choice. However, I really enjoyed this figure more than I even expected. I like Doppelganger from the comics, mainly because of his connection with Carnage. I feel like Doppelganger, for the most part, really shows up when he's like teaming up with Carnage and Shriek and things like that, so I kind of like him because of that aspect, and he's got a very vicious personality, which is always fun when it comes to poses, because there's just a little bit more that you can do with them. But the figure itself is quite wonderful. The sculpt is really nice. I was very surprised with how much detail there is. There's actual intricate detail throughout all the blue sections of the suit, which I didn't expect. And then, of course, all the line work for the webbing is all sculpted in there, which is great. The face sculpt is very vicious, and the individual teeth look great, as well as he's even got this this like bug-like pattern within the eyes that's actually sculpted, not painted again, which I think is very cool as well. And then you just get quite a lot with this guy, obviously considering he's got 6 arms. None of them are faux arms or arms that have limited articulation or anything like that. There's 6 fully articulated arms with, hinge swivel shoulders, bicep swivels, double hinge elbows, and then hinge swiveling wrists on all 6 of them, which is really cool, and it makes posing this guy so much fun and just so unique. Now, I did not get the other Spider-Man figure that came out in the Kingpin wave, which was a version of him that also had 6 arms. So for me, this was a completely fresh concept and not something that I had seen before at all either, which just made posing this guy really fun. The only issue with this guy, and the only issue that anybody seems to have with it, is the fact that there's no ab crunch. And although he's got a lot of arms, you could still add an ab crunch in it. But I understand the reasoning for not having that articulation, considering he comes with he's so much. You get so much more with this guy than your standard figure, so it makes sense that they cut back articulation-wise at some point. But I am very impressed, and I prefer to have the fully articulated arms on all 6 of them rather than have the torso articulation. So for me personally, this was a really fun figure. I had a ton of fun posing it and taking pictures, and really just a neat and unique figure at that. And there's my ranking for the Spider-Man Far From Home Molten Man Build-A-Figure wave. Overall, a really great wave. To be honest, one of the best waves in a few years, I think, for me personally, just based on my taste in figures and characters. This was a really strong wave with a heavy influence of movie, but also with some great character choice as far as the comic ones are concerned. So, just a really nice wave. I'm really happy with all of these, and the Build-A-Figure is a nice touch on the end of the wave as well, which is always good. Sometimes you get a really strong wave and the Build-A-Figure is a little lacking, or vice versa, but this is a nice example of a wave that's really solid with a solid Build-A-Figure on top of it as well. So overall, let me know what you guys think of my choices. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, as well as I'd love to hear your guys' ranking and how you'd rank this wave, and thanks so much for watching.